The following are true scary stories from the subreddit Let's Not Meet. I'll have a link in the description below. If you enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. Let's begin. My husband and I, with our kids, 2 and 4 years old, in tow, recently moved to a new city. It wasn't completely new to me, as I had grown up in the surrounding areas. The move was hell with 2 toddlers, and I knew they must have been having a difficult time. However, my husband and I just wanted to have everything unpacked in the new house before anything else. We made sure to unpack the kids' toys first. After all the unpacking, the kids were beyond restless. We had a hell of a time just keeping them from breaking some of the stuff during unpacking. You know, because kids don't want their toys, they want boxes and anything that isn't theirs. Needless to say, we were all a little restless and a bit agitated. I immediately thought we should take them to a park, meet some of the other kids in this area, etc. I remember when I was a kid, there was a park in town that was just amazing. In my memory, it looked like a giant castle, the same size as a 2-story house, and had all sorts of extra swings, tire tunnels, etc. I tell my husband, and I look up directions, and we get in the car to head off to the park. The closer we get, I start to notice how the neighborhoods were in some state of disrepair. This area had been hit hard by hurricanes in the early 2000s, and it seemed quite a few had not been able to repair their homes, thus the decline of the neighborhoods. I felt bad to see such a nice area become so broken down, until we had to stop at a red light before the park. An older woman was standing at the bus stop on the other side of the road on the driver's side. Her clothing was a bit ragged, and at first it pulled my heartstrings enough to ask my husband to let down the driver window so I could ask if she needed some water, or something. It's hot as hell down here, even in spring, and I've worked with homeless before. My husband was resisting, while I was thinking I should tell her that she could get free water at most fast food joints, when she starts screaming and pointing directly at us, saying something about stupid cunt. It was a bit unintelligible, because my husband never actually rolled down the window. Well, of course, I'm uncomfortable, but I know a lot of homeless are mentally unstable, if not worse. I'm with my family, and my husband decides that now is not the time and place for my soft heart to help someone. I agree, looking back at my kids who completely ignored the scene and were excited about the park they could see. We get to the park, and just like the neighborhood surrounding it, it was crap. My husband and I aren't stupid. We take turns, when going to parks, to check the playground equipment and surrounding play areas for anything harmful, needles, etc. It might sound like we are paranoid, but I can't tell you how many times we've actually found stuff like crack pipes, etc. Surprisingly, and thankfully, my husband came across nothing, so I start to explain the rules to my kids before we go outside. We aren't too overprotective. We want them to have a bit of independence within eyeshot, but they are only 2 and 4. My husband also checked to see if he could see the woman, but the bus had stopped, and after it had left, she was no longer there. We get out, and we decide we're going to shadow. Sounds creepy, but it just means follow around the kids today and keep an extra close eye on them. Well, my son loves the swings, so after a quick game of chase, we head for the swings. We were there for a few minutes, counting, talking about the sky and such. I looked around to see where my husband and daughter were, when suddenly through one of the tunnels comes the older woman. Well, it scared the shit out of me. She crawled out in a weird way, and she was talking in a raspy voice the entire time. I decided it's time to leave, and get my son out, to find my daughter and husband. Well, about this playground, the interior of the castle has all of the towers and swing sets. The wooden castle gate surrounds it, safety for the kids since there is a major street right next to the park. So as you guess, we are blocked by this woman who is coming towards the swing with her head bent down, still mumbling. I put myself between my son and her before we pass, and just as we are about to pass, she jerks her head up and begins to scream at us. I scoop my son up, still blocking him from her. I start to run towards the exit. I shout for my husband and feel my shirt being pulled back. Luckily, my husband was already coming towards us with my daughter after hearing the scream. Out of instinct, I jerk away and reach for my pocket that has a small pepper spray can and hold it up until we can all get away safe. My husband takes the kids. No, he isn't a pussy, but again, I've worked with unstable people before I changed career paths. He knows I know what to do and how to protect myself. I'm facing the parking lot and see my husband has gotten the kids in the car. Luckily, she decided to wait, for some reason, until my kids were out of earshot to threaten my family. She seemed particularly keen on threatening to kill my kids. It was pretty grotesque, which internally makes me want to do horrible things to her. However, I stay neutral, refusing to give her a reaction. This woman is obviously hostile. I'm gently talking to her, explaining that I'm not here to hurt her, and ask if she has any family or if she lives in the area. She completely ignores it, and continues on with her incoherent rambling and threats intermingled. I refuse to pepper spray her because she hasn't really physically hurt me, and she is keeping her distance now. My husband apparently called the police, because as we were at a standstill for a few minutes, 2 cruisers pull up. They pull up next to my husband, who points them in our direction. They come over and take her away. She doesn't even struggle. My husband had moved away at this point, so the woman wouldn't be able to see our car as she was being arrested, so I wait while they get her in the car. Before she gets in, I see her glance to her left and squint. I come out of the playground with another officer from the other cruiser and see what she's looking at. Our car, which is apparently parked by some trees. I look back as they're putting her in, and she is mumbling quietly, trying to get another view of our car. As I'm giving a statement, I let the officer know my fears about her getting too good of a glimpse of our car. He shrugged, cause, what can you do? And let me know that to keep an eye on the park. They reassured me that she'd probably be in custody for a while and forget everything. About a month later, the incident wasn't forgotten, but not fresh either. We never go to that park anymore, just in case. One day, I'm in front of the house with the kids, showing them how to pull the weeds from the garden. We're having a good time getting dirty, and I hear a woman shouting angrily from a block away. I stand up, and staying calm, tell the kids we need a water break. We brush off, and as we are going inside, the yelling gets closer. I turn and look back at the crossroads on our street, and sure enough, it's that woman. Her head is shaved now. It's not terribly important, but I can't shake that part. I get the kids inside, but she comes to stand by our house on the road. She screams, and I barely make out anything. However, I do hear her say she's found us now. She's won, and now it's her turn. I obviously call the police, but as I'm on the phone, she sprints off. I let the dispatcher know which way she's heading, but refuse to go outside and keep watch. The officer arrives to make sure we are safe, and he stays in our neighborhood until the end of his shift to make sure everything is okay. A week or so passes without incident. I still refuse to bring the kids in the front yard, just in case. Our backyard is fenced, so it feels safe enough. The next weekend, we are all outside, just relaxing, when we hear banging on our front door. It was so loud we could hear it from our backyard. My husband takes over at this point, goes inside to grab his gun and check the door. I gather the kids close, but don't go inside just in case there's an altercation. The knocking stops, and I figure my husband is dealing with it. I keep a hold of the kids by telling them the story, when suddenly I see hands above our wood fence. It appears to be someone jumping up to grab on. I get all of us inside and let my husband know what is going on. I call the cops and he heads out front to the fence. My husband comes in and says she ran off. I knew immediately that it was that woman. I asked my husband about it and he confirmed what I thought. He also told me that there were thin scratch marks on the door and a puddle of piss on the welcome mat. Lovely. The cops arrive and we give them everything we know, even telling them about the piss-puddled mat. It's been a month without incident now. Hopefully, she's gone for good. For the most part, when I was in high school, I had to catch the bus into school. The thing is that because most of my life I lived in a small town and caught the bus into the next town to go to school, the bus had both commercial and school passengers on it, as opposed to most buses in the area which are dedicated to being one or the other. Anyway, for the longest time, there was this guy who caught my bus. He was in his 50s or 60s, and he was always reading a book on conspiracy theories. He legitimately thought aliens were real and that they visited Earth on a regular basis. I'm not entirely sure how or why, but one day he started talking to me. I politely spoke back, but didn't tell him much. Anyway, after that he'd see me every few weeks and try to force these books onto me, usually some book published 15 years prior that he'd annotated the hell out of. I always got the impression that he wanted a little more from me than just to give me books though, which is in part reason why I never accepted them. There were a lot of rumors about this guy, and every so often you'd hear about him trying to get some kid to go to his flat with him. Eventually I started to catch the other bus into school to avoid him. Even so, I'd still see him every so often, and he'd still try to get me to read up on this supposed alien threat. Last I heard of him, he'd been arrested on child pornography charges. Apparently he'd been luring kids back to his flat and having them undress in front of him for the better part of a decade at this point, bare minimum, perhaps longer. I don't know when he's up for parole, but what I do know is I'd rather not meet this guy again. Weird guy on the bus. Let's not meet again. I hope you enjoyed these stories, and if you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and share them with friends if they enjoy these kinds of stories too. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.